This is the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Glad you could be with me for another great week and another great interview. Today, I'm going to have Javier Arenas. He is a former Alabama defensive back and former NFL defensive back as well for the Kansas City Chiefs and Cardinals and Falcons. And he played for Nick Saban at the beginning of that Alabama dynasty in that 2008-2009 time. And the first championship they won with Saban at Alabama was in 2009. So lots to talk about with Javy. You'll get that interview in a couple minutes after I do my 2 cents segment. Happy to have you guys in, and I'll give you the intro and all that stuff. But just a couple notes and my 2 cents for the week. Want to talk about the Georgia-Alabama game that we saw, the title game, and I'm going to quickly give you guys my NFL playoff picks as well as we head into playoff weekend, wild card weekend. So let me give you my 2 cents on Georgia and Alabama, and then I'll get to my picks after that. What a game we had on Monday night. I thought it was a slow start for sure. And, football is a regional sport, especially college football, where it's dominated by the South. And we know that, right? You got Clemson, LSU, Georgia, Florida, Alabama. It's all those SEC dominant schools. Then you sprinkle in Ohio State, Michigan, and a couple other contenders like Cincinnati. But let's be real. The only 2 teams that deserve to be in that national championship game was Georgia and was Alabama. Like there's just Cincinnati and Michigan did not belong in the same field as those 2 teams in the first round of the playoff. So we got the rematch that we wanted from the SEC title game, in which, if you remember, about a month or so ago, Alabama crushed Georgia 41-24, I believe. So it wasn't close. And that was the first time that Georgia's defense had given up more than 17 points to an opponent all season. This is a dominant Georgia team. And so when I was looking at this game going in, it was, the line was -3 for Georgia, and they were the favorite. I was like, there must be a lot of money coming in on Georgia, maybe for good reason, because they are legit, right? I mean, I know Alabama had some injuries in this game, but let's be real. That Georgia defense was unbelievable, and they got after Bryce Young, the quarterback for Alabama. They were dominant, and, it was great to see. It was great to see Georgia break through. This college football has been dominated for the most part by Alabama in the last decade or so. It's just been Alabama's world, and everybody else sprinkled in, living in it every other year or so. But Nick Saban's got 7 national championship titles. So it was nice to see a former assistant of his, Kirby Smart, break through with Georgia, his own team. And it was well documented. Before this season, Nick Saban was 24-0 against former assistants. And this year, he lost twice to former assistants. One was early in the year against Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher. You guys might remember that name. And then Kirby Smart, who was previously 0-4 against Saban going into this matchup. So this was a huge game for the conference. It was a huge game for Kirby Smart to get over the hump against his, mentor that he'd been with for so long. So I was happy to see Kirby Smart break through here with Georgia. It was a cool game to watch, especially that second half, man. It was getting wild. So happy to see that. And now it begs the question, I'm not counting the days for Nick Saban anymore. I know he's going to be around still, and he's in his 70s, but he's got a well-oiled machine there. But maybe this is not a changing of the guard, but Kirby Smart's time now, right? He recruits well. They were well coached. They got a lot of talent there, and they're going to get even more now after winning this championship. I don't think Alabama's going away, but maybe this is the beginning of the Kirby Smart era in college football. We'll see. It can easily go the other way, right? We watched Clemson and Dabo Swinney. They won 2 out of 3 years, won a championship. And then this past year, Trevor Lawrence is gone. No Deshaun Watson there to be a superstar quarterback, and Clemson fell back into the middle. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the SEC, especially you got Oklahoma coming in, you got Texas coming in. We'll see if the landscape changes, but before the game, honestly, my heart wanted Georgia to win this game because of Alabama fatigue, but my head was telling me it's hard to bet against Nick Saban in a championship game with lots of time to prepare. So happy to see that. Anyway, congrats to Georgia. Let me quickly get to my NFL picks before I get to the interview with Javy. I don't predict a lot of upsets this weekend. I like the favorites, and especially the favorites at home. It's hard to win a road playoff game. I only see one upset, which I'll get to. But let me start with Saturday night or Saturday. We're going to get the Raiders against the Bengals. A huge emotional win, crazy game. I feel bad for Charger fans. I could go off on that for a while on Brandon Staley. And we're not going to be able to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs. And that dude played his ass off in that Chargers-Raiders overtime crazy game. But we are going to get the Raiders playing with house money, going into Cincinnati on Saturday. Cincinnati's favored from what I can see at 5.5 points. And I think they'll probably win and cover that. I think the emotion of the Raiders beating the Chargers, they're going to have to come down from that. And I think Cincinnati will be rested and well prepared for a Raiders team that they already crushed this year in Las Vegas, 32-13 earlier. So I like the Bengals. They should win this game. I know both of these teams can beat anybody, and both of these teams can lose to anybody. So it won't be easy, but I like the Bengals to win, and they'll probably cover the 5.5. It's hard to bet against the offense of the Bengals right now. If that defense holds up, I like Cincinnati in this matchup. Let's move to the Saturday night game, which will be Buffalo hosting the New England Patriots, and they'll meet for the third time this year. The last time this game was in Buffalo, the Patriots, if you remember, Mac Jones threw 3 total passes the entire game. It was a snowy, ugly game, and New England won 14-10. Buffalo will not forget that. The Bills Mafia, all their fans, they will not forget that. And the last time they played in New England a couple weeks ago, Buffalo handled their business and beat the Patriots at Foxborough. I expect the Bills to win this game. They're favored by 4.5. I think they'll cover the 4.5 and beat the Patriots. This one will be tight as well, but Buffalo's just too good. They have too much talent. They're at home. The atmosphere is going to be crazy. So I like Buffalo to beat the Patriots as a favorite in Buffalo. Kansas City and the Steelers. This is the Sunday night game. You know, I know Big Ben's had a nice send-off. He had the farewell Monday night game against Cleveland. They won that game. He got the lap around the stadium. Everything was a great tribute to him. He's been there a long time, 18 years in Pittsburgh. Then they beat Baltimore, and Boswell, the kicker, kicked their way into the playoffs. So now they made the playoffs. But I think this is where the Big Ben run ends. I like Kansas City here. They're favored by 12.5 right now opening. That's a little bit too big for me for a playoff game, but I think Kansas City still wins this game pretty easily as long as that defense holds up. You know, Big Ben doesn't have a lot of firepower. They got some decent skill players, but I think Kansas City, if everybody's right over there, Kansas City should win this game pretty easily. Let's head over to the NFC. I could argue the weakest game on the calendar is going to be Sunday morning. It's going to be Sunday morning West Coast. Tampa Bay hosting the Eagles. Eagles just got crushed by Dallas last weekend. Tampa's, they do have some injuries. Godwin and Fournette's iffy. Mike Evans has been banged up a little bit. Tampa opened up at a 9-point favorite. I like Tampa to win this game. Philadelphia is not that good. They do lead the NFL in rushing, which is incredibly surprising. And Jalen Hurts has played better than most people thought, but he's more of a runner than a thrower. Tampa Bay is too good, too well coached, too well prepared. I like Tampa in a playoff game. Tom Brady at home against an average Philly team. Give me Brady. Do I think they'll cover the 9? I don't know. I'm going to say just because it's a playoff game, no, but they easily could. So this is probably one of the locks of the weekend. I like Tampa to beat Philadelphia. We are going to get San Francisco in Dallas, and this is my one upset pick of the weekend here. I like the Niners coming off a huge win against the Rams, who they've owned. I like the Niners going into Dallas against in my opinion, okay Dallas Cowboys team. They are, just for reference, the Cowboys are 6-0 in their division, the NFC East or the NFC least, because they're terrible. And they're 6-5 outside of that division. So they're just okay. Zeke Elliott is not the same dude anymore. Dak Prescott is okay. I don't know. I don't like Mike McCarthy with time management and all that stuff, clock management. I like the Niners riding this high, even though Garoppolo's got his replacement right behind him in Trey Lance. I like the Niners to go into Dallas and win this game. Dallas is only favored by 3, and they're at home, which is basically an even game. So give me the Niners as my upset pick this weekend. And finally, we have the Arizona Cardinals visiting the LA Rams for the second time this year. The Rams opening up at a 4.5-point favorite. They just got beat by San Francisco, like we just talked about. The Cardinals are really good on the road. And I went to the game that the first time these two teams played, and the Cardinals manhandled the Rams at SoFi in Los Angeles earlier this year, a few months ago. I like the Rams to win this game. I know they have bad luck against the Niners, and they get owned by them in the last, 0 for 6 in the last 6 times. I just don't trust the Cardinals enough to pick them over the Rams. I think the Rams get right. I think they figure things out. I think they beat the Cardinals, and they cover the 4.5 points. So give me the Rams. Just to recap, I like all the home favorites here. I like Cincinnati. I like Buffalo. I like Kansas City. I like the Rams. I like Tampa, all home winners here. Home, it's like I said, it's hard to win a road playoff game. And my one upset is going to be the road team, the San Francisco 49ers, beating Dallas. We'll see how I do. Most people take chalk, the favorites in this situation, home favorites. But my one upset is going to be San Francisco. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy the interview with Javier Arenas today and my 2 cents segment as always. So I'll catch you on the other side, but enjoy the interview and talk to you soon. What is up? Welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Glad to have you in today. I got a special guest, a former NFL defensive back and also DB and return man at Alabama. He is Javier Arenas. Some of you guys may know that name. He was there in the beginning of the Nick Saban Alabama dynasty, that 08-09 area, and the first championship run that Saban had at Alabama, Javier was on that team. So great conversation with him right after the title game is when I had him on. So not a great day for Alabama fans as Georgia won the national championship on Monday night, but grateful to have him. We talk about his story. He gets drafted by the Chiefs, his NFL days, his coaching days. He spent some time as an analyst with the Alabama program recently, and now he's a mentor and football teacher, private training, all that kind of stuff. So great to have Javi on, and a really cool conversation with him. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. You can follow my YouTube page. As most of you know, I say it every week. Subscribe, share it, like, comment, whatever you got to do. Check out my YouTube page. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast and you will find it all there. On the audio side, you can follow me on Apple Podcast and also Spotify. And now both of those, so Spotify as well, has 5-star rating availability. So if you could rate on Spotify as well, if you listen there, that'd be great. Otherwise, you guys know the drill on Apple Podcast. Find the 5 stars if you could. If you're enjoying the content, greatly appreciate a 5-star. And also a review on the bottom if you want to leave a little comment. That'd be awesome as well. And you can follow me anywhere on all the platforms, Pandora, Apple, obviously Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon Music, everywhere you get your podcast, Pandora. Check me out there. So just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast and you'll find all my stuff. I'm also blowing up on TikTok. So for you youngins out there, I'm on TikTok as well. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. But anyways, with that, I appreciate you joining me today and enjoy my interview with Javier Arenas. All right, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is a former NFL defensive back, most notably with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a star at Alabama under Nick Saban, and he was part of the beginning of the New Age Crimson Tide dynasty at Alabama, which ultimately led to a BCS national championship in 2010. He was first-team All-SEC, first-team All-American after his senior season in 2009, and he's here unfortunately after Bama's loss last night in the national championship game against Georgia, but happy to have him talk about his career and his story and what he's up to now. He is Javier Arenas. What's going on, Javi?
Hey, what's up, Brett, man? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Glad to have you. A lot to talk about, obviously, for last night's game, but we won't spend too much time on that. We'll talk about your career for the most part, but you're the perfect person to have right after last night's game for the national championship. Obviously, like I mentioned, Bama did lose, but what are your thoughts on what you saw last night and how the game went?
I think it obviously was supposed to happen, just from the aspect of, we've been beating Georgia since Kirby's been there, and we just beat him in the SEC championship, and I think not only the coaches for Georgia understood what they needed to do to have success against us this time around, but the players had that emotion of won't be denied. I liken it to, in 2009, 2008, when we got beat by Florida in the SEC championship game, walking out of the tunnel the next year in 2009, the game was won. And I had, just from the sake of, we won't be denied. In fact, that was a saying that year, we will not be denied, and we played like it. And I felt like Georgia, did the same thing. So not that I expected it to happen prior to the game, but I anticipated it would be a good game. And, I think that's exactly what we got.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I was kind of surprised because Bama crushed them in the SEC championship game, and Georgia was favored by 2.5, 3 in most, like what I saw. And I was like, so they really do like the odds makers like Georgia. And other than the game against Bama, they'd only given up 17 points or less to every other opponent. So they were the real deal. Even though you did go to Alabama, can you appreciate Georgia's defense, or what did you like about what they were doing?
Well, first and foremost, from a personnel standpoint, I guess, Kirby Smart was my defensive coordinator at Alabama, and we had guys like Terrence Cody, Marcel Darius, Courtney Upshaw, amongst a whole bunch of other huge front guys. Our philosophy was we started up front. The game is won up front, defensive, offensive line. And Bama not necessarily got away from that. We still got big athletic defensive linemen, but you see the guys on Georgia's defensive line. It took me back to 2009. I was like, all right, this looks very, very familiar. So I appreciated that from Georgia.
Sure.
I like seeing that. But the story is still the same as far as the defensive scheme, on Georgia's side, from what it looks like. Same coverages that we've always ran, like, quarters match and Ripley's, maybe even some combination calls with both of those concepts in it, just based off of the offensive formation. But it was impressive to see the guys playing fast, for Georgia, and stepping up to make big plays.
Sure. And I was just curious, before we get to your story a little bit, you've been through national title games or big bowl games. So what is it like as in a Saban program leading up to, like a month of preparation? Everyone says, oh, I'm not going to bet against Nick Saban when he has a month to prepare. So what is it like for you guys when you were there leading up to a big bowl game?
It's, you got a little bit more time to practice. So, the first couple of days will be allocated towards the fundamentals. It'll be like a training camp practice.
Okay.
Instead of jumping straight into the game plan and skipping right over tackling and just technique. We went back to first base, if you will, or back to scratch. Worked on the fundamentals, and then after like 2 days of fundamentals or camp practices, we went into the scheme of things. Working on what we wanted to do to play, what we wanted to play that particular weekend. How we would stop them, and just having more time to prepare. Coach had the opportunity to let us know. He didn't just tell us, look, like when we played against Tim Tebow, for an example, we're running this coverage called 6-stay, which gives us edges on the defense for Tim Tebow and that read option stuff.
Yeah.
He explained why we were doing it. So, we out there playing and understanding what we're doing and why we're doing it, to heighten our chances for success. So I think he just get more detailed in preparation,
Sure.
with that amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get back to some of those big games that you played in. I did want to go to kind of the beginning, your upbringing a little bit. So you grew up in Tampa, you're back there now. And I think I heard on another interview you have a huge family. So what kind of athletes did you have in your family when you were growing up, other than you? And, ultimately, what kind of sports were you guys all playing, all that stuff?
It was 6 of us. My sister was the oldest. It was 5 boys. The second oldest, my oldest brother, he was a phenomenal basketball player, phenomenal football player. Just, couldn't stay out of trouble, to be quite frank.
Okay.
But he was a great leader for us, as ironic as it may sound.
Yeah.
But after him, my, I guess, third oldest sibling, he played football at Nebraska, played receiver in high school, won, I think the award is called Mr. Florida, Mr. Football, excuse me, and 3-8 in the state of Florida. Playing receiver, he was real good. Again, went to Nebraska, moved to cornerback, where he played for Bo Pelini, and had a short stint in NFL. He was a bigger corner. Then it was myself, I guess, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
And then I got 2 younger twin brothers. I didn't know what they were identical until one of them, gained a little more weight. But the slimmer one, he went to Robinson, initially transferred to Plant, won a championship with Robert Moore and Aaron Murray, excuse me, and went to junior college, and he was a real exceptional running back. We had our moments, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like a pretty successful or athletic family, at least. So when you got to high school, what positions were you playing, and when did you commit to being a cornerback, or did you even know you were going to be in college?
That wasn't a plan, and doing a lot of mentoring nowadays, I tell kids, because people say, keep your eye on the prize. And I'm like, for what? Because if you just keep your eye on the prize and you just keep your eyes on where you're trying to get, which makes a little bit of sense. you can't see the details in terms of what you need to do to get over these summits, if you will. You know what I mean? So for me, my first time playing corner was when I was 7 years old playing Little League football. I had a real good Little League football coach, and he put me at corner, and I'm like, what position is this?
Yeah.
Like, they don't throw the ball.
Right. You want
like
the
that.
ball.
Right. And I played running back as well, but corner was like my first position. And I don't know, I embraced it at an early age. You know, I understood, like, you know, because kids nowadays, when kids play corner, they embrace it more. But back when I was young, again, it wasn't that popular.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know, I liked it. I felt natural at it, and I made a lot of plays, and I stuck with it, you know, through high school. And of course, I played running back as well. When I was at Robinson in high school, I played receiver and return kick. So running back, receiver, corner, and return man.
Yeah, you did everything, man. Did you think that you were going to go to college as one of those other positions other than corner?
Um, um,
Or did you see your future kind of as that?
well, I saw my future as a corner, you know,
Yeah.
because I did a lot of good things in high school, at the running back position, at the receiver position. But I don't know, I guess a lot of my value was at corner.
Yeah.
The game that got me my offer from Alabama, you know, I played against Sam Shields, who went to Miami and played for the Green Bay Packers for a long time.
Yeah.
He was a top tier receiver in the state of Florida, and the way that I covered him, you know, after the game, I'm walking back to the locker room. They won by like 1 point, and I'm walking back to the locker room, and his dad catches up to me and told me, he's like, "Hey, that was a great job covering my son." Just little things like that. Just I was like, all right, this might be my position, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome to hear that from your opponent's dad.
Yeah.
From what I saw, you weren't heavily recruited out of high school. You did mention getting an offer from Bama, but I don't think that was your first offer. So what other schools were interested in you, and where did you almost go other than Bama?
So Florida Atlantic, FIU, Bethune-Cookman.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Come on, Bowling Green.
Oh, wow.
I did this on purpose. You can count them on one hand how many offers I had, and that was it. And I committed to every last one of them. And mom's like, "Well, I don't know if you can do that." I was like, "I know I'm going somewhere. I tell you that much." You know what I mean?
There you go. So you like verbally committed to all of them?
Yeah, verbally committed. They talk about being where your feet were. Every visit I was in. I went and bought the hat. I'm committed. So, but then Bama came in the last week before signing day after that particular game where I covered Sam Shields.
Yeah.
But ironically, you know, I was at a buddy's house the week before they offered me, and I was watching Bama play against Florida in Tuscaloosa, where Bama beat them pretty good. Tyrone Prothro snapped his leg, and it was a real bad injury. And I'm at the buddy's house watching, and mind you, I'm watching because Florida's playing, you know, and they just so happen to be playing Alabama, and literally I'm thinking, like, Alabama got a football team. I had no idea.
Right.
Being a kid growing up in Florida, but watching that game was when my opportunity ultimately presented itself, or became possible, if you will.
Sure.
You know, with Tyrone breaking his leg and Bama needing a punt returner, and so they offered me. They told me they want me to come in to return punts. I would talk to Coach Shula, who's the head coach at the time, and you know, I felt disrespected my whole career because I felt like I was a corner, but everybody felt like I was a punt returner. You know, so Mike Shula would call like while I was still in high school and ask me, "How you doing? Are you catching punts?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm working on my DB drills too." Like, let's talk about that.
Right.
And then at the end of my career, when I signed with Buffalo, Rex Ryan pulled me to the side and he said, "Look, make no mistakes about it. You hit a return kicks." I'm like, "Yeah, trust me, I've been reminded my whole life."
They just didn't want you to play corner, man. They want you to return.
Man, my size isn't popular at the position, obviously, but
right.
I made it happen. So
yeah, you definitely did. And most people, I don't know, I mean, this is a while back, but most people didn't realize how long Coach Saban has been there. Because when you got there, you said Coach Shula was recruiting you, and Coach Saban hadn't gotten there yet. So what was the program like? You know, Alabama, like you said, you're from Florida, didn't even know they had a good football program. What was it like before Nick Saban got to Alabama?
It was fun to me.
Yeah.
I came from Robbins High School, so I could have went to Tall Tree State, and that would have been a heck of an upgrade.
Sure.
But Coach Shula was a great coach, very, very good coach, offensive-minded coach, obviously. We had a great defensive-minded coach in Joe Kines. So, you know, Bama was very competitive, but Coach Saban came in, and it's like joined the armed forces all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Blowing horns to wake you up at 6 a.m. through the dorm hallways. It was miserable, to be honest with you, but you know, on the other side of that misery, or on the other side of that pain, or the other side of that whatever you want to consider it, is light, is success. And you know, we all believe that, so we endured it. No, we didn't endure it, we embraced it, like the tough parts of it. And I think that's what you see when you turn on television now in Bama. We die in the summer. I'm talking about literally. We used to say that we die and come back to life during the summer, because they worked us so hard to where nothing is hard now. Fourth quarter, other teams' tongue hanging out their mouth. We just getting started. So that was really the difference. It wasn't that way with Coach Shula, but it was fun, and I thought we had a good team when Coach Shula was there.
Yeah, definitely. And it does seem like that. Usually you guys, when I watch Bama play, they get better as the game goes on. They just methodically beat people down as the game goes on. It's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, no doubt.
That was also when Florida was like starting to rise as well. Like that was the Tebow time, like you talked about, and all that stuff. And you guys, I want to fast forward to 2008. You guys are 12-0. You just killed Auburn. You meet Tebow and the Gators in the SEC championship. Obviously, that didn't go your way. And then you guys lose to Utah in the Sugar Bowl, and you guys end up at 12-2. At that time, did you know, like you said, going into the next year, you had a lot coming back and you guys were going to be really good the following year?
Yeah, I wasn't too sure, but it was a moment that helped me realize that after that particular game, that bowl game, I returned the punt. It might still be the Sugar Bowl record for the longest punt return. That was like the only play that was made in the game.
Yeah.
Just facts, you know.
Yeah.
I think that was the only touchdown and maybe a field goal. But after the game, you know, somebody tapped me on my shoulder, and we were in the locker room still in New Orleans, because that's where the game was played. And someone told me Coach Saban wanted to talk to me, and you know, I wanted to the coach's office in the locker room, and Coach Saban said to me, he said, I feel like you should come back next year. And it threw me all the way off, because I had no other plans. But that let me know that we might have. I think he understands that we have something. You know, we got the right guys at that particular time. All of the bad apples was out. And I hate to use that word, but I think that's how he saw it, the guys who he didn't recruit, essentially. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think it was now this dynasty is about to start. So.
Yeah, definitely. And that, I mean, 2009, it was your guys' year, man. You guys dominated the whole time. You were 14-0, SEC champs. You get your revenge against Tebow in Florida. You beat Texas in the title game at the Rose Bowl. Tell us about that season, ultimately ending in a championship. As we kind of talked about, you guys knew what you had, but maybe you didn't realize it until the game started. So what was that 2009 season like?
That 2009 season was fun, because we almost had the perfect team from top to bottom. Like even our captains, our leadership, me, Rolando McClain, and a guy named Mike Johnson, the characteristics of our captains, you know, I was the leader by example. And imagine on that team with such big players.
Yeah, I'm going to read a bunch of names in a second to you after this.
Yeah.
Just to let people know how strong you guys were.
No question about it.
Yeah.
Figuratively speaking and literally,
yeah,
you know, big players, big time players, and size wise, to have me as a captain, but the captain that leads by example.
Sure.
If I can do it, no one else has an excuse. Rolando McClain, he'll grab you by a collar and drag you with him. And Mike Johnson on offense, just because Greg McElroy was such a good quarterback, but it wasn't like Bryce Young. You know what I mean? He's unanimously the captain. You know what I mean? Mike Johnson was just that guy that rallied the troops on offense. So just the personality of our football team. Coach Saban, this is not to discredit him, but he ain't have to do a lot of coaching that year.
Yeah.
He did,
Sure.
from an X's and O's standpoint, but we policed ourselves. We had a high standard, based off of what he implemented into us when he first got there. So I guess it was like a well-oiled machine that year. I couldn't do anything wrong. Felt like everything was in our favor. It was probably the best time of my life.
So he changed the culture basically, and then you guys embraced the culture and totally took it over yourselves. So yeah, he had to kind of set the foundation. Then you guys just were ready to go when that was that season. I didn't, since you mentioned a few of the names, I want to just mention some more just for fun because of the guys that I've seen you played with. You had Mark Ingram, who was the Heisman winner. You also had Trent Richardson, who was really good college player. Julio Jones, Eddie Lacy, you played with, Marcel Darius, Mark Barron, Dre Kirkpatrick. You mentioned Rolando McClain, Donta Hightower, Kareem Jackson, and a lot more of those names. I mean, that's just like one of the years at Alabama. Like, it was just, when you hear those names, what do you think of? I mean, like, how good were these dudes?
Each completely different guys. Each brought something different to the team, which made us so powerful as a unit. All different types of abilities for the most part, but all bought into the same idea. And oh man, our relationship back then was so good, and so authentic. We still have one another's back today. You know what I mean? So I that makes me miss football. I don't really miss football, but being around those guys,
yeah,
having a back, that's what I think about when you bring up those names, and I kind of miss it a little bit.
Sure. No, I totally get that. I'm assuming you went against Julio in practice a few times, right? What was it like to cover him in practice?
I'm being honest. It was, you had to strain your gut every play, but I had a lot of success against him in practice because I know how to play him.
Sure.
When the ball was in the deep part of the field, I never turned to look for the ball because I want to know where he is the whole time, because it'd jump over your head and grab the ball. So I would wait. I'll be running with him and wait for his hands to go up and his eyes to get big, and then I poke the ball out. So I used to always tell him, look, you can catch it all you want to, but you ain't bringing it down.
Yeah.
So it made me a better football player. He made me a better football player.
I'm sure. Yeah. And I just want to ask about these running backs. Like, obviously Mark Ingram has had a long career, but like Trent Richardson and Eddie Lacy, man, they were so good in college. Not yet they're, bash them or anything like that. Just what happened to them,
What do you mean?
Like they didn't really project out to what, Derrick Henry is or Mark Ingram is. Like they didn't translate to the NFL as well as people thought. They'll just say it like that.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's just your decision making when you get up there. And I think I fall into that category as well. And I'm fine with saying it just because it makes me who I am today in terms of being a good mentor. I got a lot to give back to the community, essentially, like from good decisions I made and bad decisions I made. I can help steer them away from it.
Yeah.
But back to your question, I think it's just decision making, and not that those guys necessarily made bad decisions, at least in their mind. Just some of us didn't go into the most advantageous situations in NFL. You could use as an excuse, and that'd be the reason why you don't stay up there late to study like you need to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the extra stuff.
At the end of the day, it ultimately goes back to your decision making. So
I think that's a common thing because when you're in such a structured environment like college, or you in a Saban program where every detail is mapped out, someone's on your ass all the time. When you get to the pros, it's your career, right? It's what you make of it. So is that kind of what you're saying? You're a pro now. You're not in college anymore, where there's not as much structure, maybe.
Yeah, man, you're exactly right. But to be fair, I had some NFL coaches didn't like Bama players. They knocked us. Now the NFL draft it don't reflect what I'm saying because they draft us, but I think ultimately they respect us. But I had coaches take a lot of shots at me just because I went to Bama. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. So guess it took a lot for us to prove ourselves as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was lucky to where I had a good general manager, a great general manager, and Scott Pioli, who's real
Yeah.
close friends with Coach Saban. So I could do no wrong in them first 3 years of Kansas City. But after that, and it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to ask you about what it was like to break the SEC record for punt return touchdowns. And you left Alabama the all-time leader in punt return yards and kickoff return yards. That's pretty impressive, man. So even though everybody you wanted to be a corner, everyone wanted you to be a return man. When you were returning punts or kicks, what was like the mindset, or what made you so good at doing that?
It was a process. First year, I made sure I caught everything. I wore no gloves out there. I was just out there, really. But I made sure I caught every punt. It got to the point to where I would catch it, never called a fair catch, and I get smacked. I get up before the guy who hit me,
right,
to let him know he didn't fake it. So that was play. That was a play made for me in a return game my freshman year. And then towards the end of the year, I ended up having 2 punt returns for a touchdown. So going into that second year, I knew I could catch the ball without a doubt. I knew I could catch it in traffic. I also learned that these guys run it down on you, have to time it up perfect to, knock you out as you catch the ball. So that's not really going to happen. So you can, if you go back and look at some of my clips, I remember one time in particular against Kentucky, the guys get down there early and they just sitting there waiting for me to catch it or fair catch it. And I just catch it and take off with it. So that's why I say it's a process. I realized that I could catch this thing, and going to that second year, once I get comfortable and I'm not nervous anymore, my legs aren't heavy, I catching and trying to score every single time. And then something else that merged into it was how the crowd really got into me being back there. They would chant my name every time I went out there.
Nice.
So that's why I'm like, all right. It almost was like the band director. Like I can get them loud, or I can calm them down. You know what I mean? Obviously, calming them down if you muff a punt or something like that. But
yeah,
getting them loud. I think the score was 24-24 against LSU, and running the punt back to break the tie. You know what I mean? I knew I was capable of that, and that was very fun.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of like those SEC games, what was maybe the toughest environment that you had to play in? Was it LSU? Was it Florida? Was it another school? What was the toughest environment that you guys had to play in, even if you beat them?
Probably LSU.
Yeah.
And forget the fans. It was more so because of the conditions. Like it was windy a lot. Cold during the time that we played them, but it wasn't really Death Valley to me, just in terms of it being afraid to go in there and play.
Sure.
Again, I struggled because of the wind. I hated the stadium. The wind swirled, so I struggled at times there. So LSU.
That's got to be tough with the wind and they're usually good and the crowd's loud, and I can imagine. I want to skip ahead to the 2010 draft. So you go in the second round to Kansas City. What was draft day like for you? What do you remember about, leading up to the draft, any of that stuff, and where you thought you might go and all that, the whole draft process?
It was amazing. I couldn't fathom it prior to it occurring. I had my whole family at my home. I brought some friends from Alabama, and everybody was, again, in the house, in the living room in particular, watching it. And I was out there as well, but as it got closer to the second round, I went to the back room, which was that second day of the draft.
Right.
First round was the first day. And so I guess, I was staying in a hotel at the time when I came home, you know what I mean? And we would all go to my mom's house for the draft. And that second day when I went, I didn't stand in the living room because I felt like it was getting close. And I don't know, I wanted to be by myself when that pick got called, when my name got called. I knew that wasn't possible because everybody would seep into the back room. But I don't know, man. It was just, I got the call from Scott Pioli telling me that they were going to draft me, and I'm sitting here in my childhood home where my mom, we grew up, and we didn't grow up, but I lived in a housing project until I was like 7 or 8 years old before we moved to South Tampa, I think, I don't know who the president was at the time, but they came out with basically a single moms can afford homes. And so it was a great opportunity for us. But, we still struggled living in the place that we live in. But there's very places where I'm sitting and listening to my name get called for the draft. So it was a surreal moment.
Yeah, no, I bet. Did you have a draft party on day one, or did you know maybe it wouldn't be a first round pick?
Oh, no. I mean, I knew it was a possibility because
Okay.
I met with Rex Ryan and the Jets, and they asked me, why should you be our first round pick? So they led me to believe that I could potentially go in the first round, but I was not going to have a Ben Roethlisberger moment or these other guys who, anticipated, and it didn't occur until later.
Sure. And I believe I did want to ask you about the combine. You went to the combine, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I didn't want to, I've never talked to anybody that's done it. So what was it like back then? The interviews, the drills, that you're now around the best people that are about ready to be drafted. What do you remember about going to the combine leading up to the draft?
It was a unique experience for me, just from the aspect of, I didn't bench because I had a hurt shoulder. I walked out on who was ultimately my defensive back coach in Kansas City. So I think the second day there, all of the defensive backs go into a room, not a hotel room, but like an area in the hotel. And all of the secondary coaches in the NFL just kind of walk around and see who they want to talk to, this, that, and other. And Emmett Thomas, he was my DB coach in Kansas City. He's a Hall of Famer defensive back for the Chiefs. And he sees me, and he's just antagonizing. He's like, he's short. He's shorter than I thought. I'm like, well, why we talking then? Like, you know what I mean? And so but that was his way of wanting to talk to me. And I walked out of the whole room. I'm like, I'm not about to sit here and listen to this cat. But again, he ultimately became my defensive back coach. Moving on to like the meetings with the particular teams, I met with, if I can recall, met with Mike Tomlin for 5 minutes. It was a little odd. Just he was the only one in the room.
Okay.
I met with Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had a flock of guys in the room. Also, the Minnesota Vikings had a lot of guys in the room. They put you on the board, and I thrived on the board. So that part was great. That part was awesome. The medical part is never fun for anyone.
Sure.
But the on the field part kind of got a little rough for me. I ran my first 40, which is the first thing that we do when we get out there, and tore my hamstring the last 5 yards. I clocked a 4.57 still, but I couldn't do anything else after that. But that 4.57 allowed Scott Pioli to draft me, because he could say he's fast enough. And I never thought I was going to run that, to be honest. I was never a speed guy. I was more quick. So it was cut short because I tore my hamstring, but I did just enough. You know what I mean?
Wow. So how long did it take you to come back from that? Were you ready for the next season?
Well, after the draft, I think it was a week after the draft, we had a rookie mini camp, and I remember going to rookie mini camp, but not participating because I was still recovering.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was when you talked to Tom, when you brought up Mike Tomlin, that was right after they won the Super Bowl, right? That was like the year after.
Maybe 2 years.
2 years after. Okay.
2008. This was 2010.
Got it. Okay. 2 years after.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the first time you scored an NFL touchdown. That was 2011 against the Raiders. The Chiefs and Raiders have always had a great rivalry over the years in the AFC West. What was it like to play, I guess, in Oakland or even at Arrowhead, but also to score your first touchdown in the NFL?
Well, first and foremost, Oakland was a lot of firsts for me.
Yeah.
First touchdown on offense, my first punt return touchdown, which got called back.
Okay.
First interception as well, but that first touchdown on offense, it was surreal. It was me scoring in the NFL, but not just in the NFL, in a black hole.
Yeah.
I was real nervous when I got in the end zone. I awkwardly beat my chest.
You're like, don't hurt me, but I scored.
Yeah, it's just no rhythm to it, no passion.
Sure.
But it was awesome, man. And I think Coach Todd Haley, who's our head coach, he saw a lot in me. I did a lot of stuff on special teams in terms of like fake punts, and he put me in a wildcat quarterback. So yeah, he saw a lot in me. I appreciate him.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Do you think maybe like the way they use offenses now, you could have an offensive identity in this NFL?
Oh, no question about it.
Yeah.
No question. That's I. You know, defense in the NFL got a little tough for me because obviously we guard the best athletes in the world and receivers, and they're quick and we're quick too. Um, but I always wondered, like, just give me the ball and let me see if any of these NFL guys can play with me
Yeah.
or can tackle me. You know what I mean? So uh, I would think that sometimes I was like, maybe should have played offense and stuck to offense.
Sure. When you came in the league with Kansas City, did you have any, I'm sure you had some, but like mentors or veterans that were there to help you out, like kind of help you transition to the league? Who are some of those guys for you?
Yeah, a guy named Travis Daniels in Kansas City. He went to LSU. He played for Coach Saban.
Okay.
Also played with Coach Saban when Coach was with the Dolphins. And then Brandon Flowers was we still communicate. Both of those guys, we all still talk to this day. And they were real helpful just because Emmett Thomas being my DB coach was a great DB coach, a real long guy, obviously a real short guy. And I don't know, I just think we missed a lot. Like he missed on some coaching points with me. I don't know if I said that right when I say he missed on some coaching points. I just don't think he understood me, or ever coached somebody my side, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, he couldn't like relate to how you need to be taught. Yeah,
100%. And so like guys like Brandon Flowers would encourage me. Like I'd be in the game and I have a guy just completely locked down, and B Flow would see it. He saw it, and he like, man, good job. That encouraged me because you talk about all pro, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
Travis Daniels, again, the other guy that I mentioned, I used to make fun of how old he was. He wasn't that old.
Sure.
Crack jokes. He played like he was an older guy though. He would sit on routes. He knew what routes were coming. So he encouraged me to study the game more and understand it as well.
And who are some of the best? Obviously you faced a ton of receivers during your career in those years. Who are some of the best receivers that you had to go against that you remember? Man, like this dude's going to be tough today.
Yeah, Randall Cobb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Santonio Holmes when he played with the Jets, though not with the Steelers.
Okay.
Larry Fitzgerald, Julio, of course.
Yeah.
And who else did I struggle with?
What about Calvin Johnson? Did you ever face him?
Yeah, I got in my stance and I was like at his waist. I was like, something ain't right here. Something ain't right. They put him in the slot to try to create a mismatch, but we played zone. But yeah, him of course.
Yeah.
But I always had success with the guys like AB, T.Y. Hilton, Wes Welker. I mean, never gave up a touchdown. I don't think I gave a catch up against them. Had a lot of PBUs when I played against the Steelers. So I had success against a lot of the smaller guys, but the bigger guys, man, they're big and quick and
right.
fast,
So you got to face AB before he was AB, really, right? Like, or was
I think he was becoming AB.
Yeah.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders on the team with him. He was good. He was productive as heck. You know what I mean? So
the Steelers can draft receivers, man. I don't know. They always draft well at receiver for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were stacked then too. And when you, what was it like when you saw Julio in the NFL after you guys played together?
It was awesome. I played with him as well for 1 year in Atlanta. But
that's right.
Yeah, I think my second season in Kansas City, his first season in Atlanta, they came up, and it was just good to see him. Made me feel good. Made me feel at home, if you will, just being around somebody who I grew my talent with. But then I played with him in Atlanta as well, and it helped me out because I knew how to guard him. And so I looked like I was capable of playing, which I was at the time still, you know what I mean? So it was good. It was good seeing him every time I got the opportunity to.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you mentioned playing in Atlanta and other places. What was it like for you to leave? Kansas City liked you out of the draft. You were with them for 4 years or 5 years. Then you ended up getting traded. What do you remember about that process? It's tough in the business, but what do you remember about that?
I remember that process being a learning process for me because I asked to be traded essentially. Not essentially, I asked to be traded.
Oh, okay.
Just because Andy Reid came in. I had started for 3 years. He came in and bumped me to the back of the depth chart, without letting me lose my position at least.
Okay.
I had 3 productive seasons at the nickel position in particular. And my last year I started at corner, and started at nickel. So when he came in, just bumped me to the back, put some guys who was at the end of their careers in front of me. And I just went up there and told him, this is my contract year. You got me third string nickel. Like, it's not going to work. And again, I reiterate, learning experience, right? You know what I mean? So they traded me away to Arizona. So it was, and and when Arizona called me, the special teams coach called me. He recruited me out of high school. He was at Mississippi State. His name's Amos Jones.
Okay. He's
the special teams coach at Arizona at this particular time. He called me. He's like, "Hey man, you're a Cardinal now." I was an idiot back then, but I was. There was a lot of confidence with it as well.
Yeah, you still felt like you could play at a high level, so you believed in yourself.
No question. And so he calls me. Amos Jones calls me. Hey, you're a Cardinal now. I'm like, no, I'm not. He's like, yes, you are. I was like, he said, somebody don't want you over there. I was like, yeah, I know. I asked him to trade me. It was a battle to get me over there, just because they had just drafted Tyrann Mathieu, and we play the exact same position. And this is my contract year. But long story short, BA Bruce Arians called me. It's like, take as much time as you need to come out here, because he understood that I had a family and I had to pick up everything and move.
Sure.
So it ultimately ended up being great, and I played with an awesome staff at Arizona, which is now the Tampa Bay Bucs staff.
Right. And look, maybe you said it was learning experience. Do you regret asking to be traded, or do you think maybe this was a good thing for you to grow, see a different organization, different coaching staff? All the was there? I'm sure there's some positives there too.
Yeah, it was a lot of positives there, and but it was supposed to happen. It happened. It is what it is. Now, when I hear a kid, when I was at Bama for the past 4 years, this is the first year, or this year that just passed, that I wasn't with them as a defense analyst. But before then, my kids at the school was mad about not playing and wanting to transfer. I'm like, come on, let me sit down and talk to you, bro. You know what I mean? Like, just wait it out. If God has a plan for you, it's going to be. It's already written. You know what I mean? So just stick it out. It'll build you in a lot of different ways. You know what I mean? And just let the chips fall where they may. That's the advice that I can give now. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, I would have sat down in Kansas City and just put my head down and grinded it out, but I didn't. I was weak. I was weak at that point. You know what I mean? I ain't have the strength to do that. You know what I mean? I ran, but I didn't run to a bad place. I ran to people who I was familiar with and that were familiar with me.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think transferring schools in college is a bad thing. I actually did that in college because I wasn't getting enough playing time in baseball. And that actually was like the turning point in my career. So I think, to your point, you got to be honest with your situation. How far down in the depth chart are you, or how important are you one of their guys? If you're not, so I can't fault you for wanting to get traded if you didn't play.
Yeah, but it's a lot to say about sticking it out, though.
Sure, there's something there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Just, I almost transferred from Bama after when Coach Saban got there. I was in his office beating down his door like, look, I just want to leave. I don't want to be here, because he wouldn't play me. He wouldn't bump me up the depth chart despite what I did.
Yeah.
During practices that mattered, scrimmages, during training camp. And the man wasn't going to play me. And so he said, go to your dorm, think about it. So I essentially held out for like 3 days. Finally went back to him and said, look, coach, I'm going to stay. The only reason why I'm not going to leave is because I don't want my mom to have to drive 10 hours to pick me up. She dropped me off. This was a special moment for us. So I just stick it out and get my degree. And ever since I left his office on that particular day, I become a starter. He thought completely, different about me. So I don't know, just staying there and sticking it out made me who I am to Bama fans today.
No, that's great. No, that's awesome that you did that. And speaking of being at Bama, I did want to, you kind of touched on it a little bit. You were a defensive analyst for the last 4 years, not this season, but the 4 before that. What was it like being a coach and on the other side of the ball, in the meetings and all that stuff for you, instead of being a player, where it's a different mindset as a player. So now you kind of big picture as a coach. What was that like for you?
It was fun. It was fun because I got to learn under the best. And I got to win championships while doing it. 1, 2, while we were there, while I was there as an analyst. But it was tough too. And I think it made me a lot tougher. It equipped me to be in the situation that I'm in now, which is trying to start my own business and run my own business, because I think I've learned more business than I learned football being there for the past 4 years, just based off of how Coach Saban runs the organization. But I know a lot of football as well, gained a lot of football knowledge as well. So it was amazing. But like I said, it was tough at times too, especially with COVID hitting and things like that. So the past 4 years built me up, man. Built me up a lot.
Yeah. And it's well documented how many assistants have come through that program and gone on to be head coaches elsewhere. You've seen a ton of these dudes come through, even the last 4 years, probably. Or even when you were there, like Kirby Smart was there. And now, all of a sudden he's at the top of the game now. What was it like working with all these different assistants that eventually became head coaches elsewhere?
It was, you got to deal with egos, if I'm being frank.
Yeah.
So it was tough, to be honest with you. But working with Pete Golden in particular, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. He used me. Like I did the most fun stuff. Like just.
And what is he? Sorry, what is he in the organization? I don't know who that is.
No, it's okay. Defensive coordinator.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, he used me how I saw myself, how I thought I should be used. He had me do all types of reports that I love to do and that would contribute to the success that we were having. But like Butch Jones, Charlie Strong, old Texas head coach, USF head coach.
Yeah.
Steve Sarkisian, Jeff Banks, all of these guys. It was good to see them and how they worked, but at the same time, I'm being frank. I knew the type of coach that I saw, the type of coach that I wanted to be, and the type of coach that I didn't want to be. You know what I mean? So that was what it was like having all of those former guys there. I'm like, Charlie Strong, I see some identical traits, in terms of me and him. Pete Golden, the D coordinator, I see some. He's brilliant. I got to start to think out of the box. But then when you talk about coaches, man, it's an arrogance to it. You know what I mean? And I couldn't get with that at all. And no one in particular. We all suffer from it, but it helped me to kind of calm it down. Because going back to the end of my playing career, it was a lot of arrogance, or confidence, whatever you want to call it, but it don't do you any good at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So
it's a lot of, I get what you're saying, like a lot of egos, and there's a lot of head coaches that are assistants on, at the time. So they're all, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, basically.
No doubt, man.
Yeah.
So it was a good experience.
Yeah, no, I believe it. Yeah, for sure. And so now you've been done with Bama for the last year or so. What is what are you doing now for your own business? I know you're kind of working with young players, stuff like that, but what's your goal with, transitioning out of being a coach at a school and you're just doing like more private training now?
Well, right now in particular, it's a lot of private training, individual one-on-one training. And I built up my clientele. The whole idea was to build up the clientele before I opened the gym. So when I open the gym, it can be rolling.
Right.
Still working on. I got a partner that I met, and we've been going strong for about a year in terms of trying to get this thing going.
Sure.
And we're meeting again next week. We kind of took some time off, while I built up my clientele. But outside of that, I got a mentorship program that I put in my old high school. It's just me and a group of kids after school for 30 minutes for the sake of their attention span and being productive and trying to drive points home 2 times a week. So I put that in Robinson, my old school. I'm trying to get it put into other schools. It's been a battle just because these principals have so much going on.
Right.
I'm trying to let them know I can limit what you have going on, because a lot of what you have going on is, kids, these getting in trouble and just having to put up with a lot of stuff that, it has to do with the decisions some of your students make. You know what I mean? So I got that working. And also I'm putting another program in schools. It's an after school program. So I teach football. I literally teach it from an X's and O's standpoint, and from a physical training standpoint. So I'm excited about it all. I'm trying to just I'm trying to upgrade the brand of football in Tampa.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I know, when I played baseball, so some baseball, high school coaches don't like you to go get private training because they're teaching you a certain way, and then you're going to come in with a different teaching or mindset of the way to play a position. Do a lot of the high school coaches that you've maybe dealt with, are they happy to have you? I would think, hopefully, to have you work with their kids, or they are a little bit apprehensive about it?
They're a little apprehensive, but
Yeah.
my way to kind of ease that tension is I go in. I went to see most of these high schools in Hillsborough County when I first got back, and I immediately got on the board with them and just started blowing their mind. Just so
I'm sure,
like just to decategorize myself, if that's even a word, from these other trainers. Like I'm nothing like them. I'm not a cone guy. I'm a fundamental guy. I'm a context guy, meaning just don't go out there and cover somebody, understand the situation. So you narrow it down to what you could potentially get. And again, just getting on the board with them and talking front schemes, like just, man, for hours. And so that's how I think I ease the tension. But then you still got the ones who still arrogant. They still.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, and it's okay. And it's okay.
Yeah, it's nothing against you personally. It's just their egos in the way of, you helping them.
No doubt about it. So that's another thing that I'm looking to try to do is basically be a consultant for high school coaches from X's and O standpoint. But just because of what we just spoke about, I don't know how successful that could be, because you got to work through a lot of different type of characteristics to try to get them to buy in.
Yeah. And I'm going to guess most of these high school coaches never played in the NFL or even at a high level college. So I hate to say it. How dumb can you be not to use someone like your services,
Well, that's precisely why they feel that way, because they've never done it. So they feel like the ball's in my court now. So
sure. Yeah. I actually want to real quick ask you, because you're talking about, dominating the board, meaning, X's and O's, your knowledge of the game is so far superior than a lot of people. I was thinking, like, what was it like for you with your knowledge of the game and your, have Alabama experience? You would think other colleges would be like, yes, I want Javy on our staff, but didn't always go that way when you were interviewing. So what was it like for you to go through that process?
Well, it didn't necessarily go like that either. Like, for example, when I interviewed for the DB coaching job at FAU, when Lane Kiffin was down there, flew down there, had a 2-hour interview with Monty Kiffin.
Yeah.
On the board. It went great. Went outstanding. In fact, I met with Lane before I left. A couple of weeks later, the receivers coach for FAU was in Tuscaloosa, and he used to be the receivers coach for LSU. Now he's the receiver coach with Lane Kiffin down at FAU.
Okay.
Right? And I said, what happened? He was like, man, we had a staff meeting. We all voted, and everybody voted to hire you except for the defensive coordinator, who hired his former player. So that was the issue with me for the most part.
Yeah.
Another issue was, like, when I went to visit Thomas Dimitroff with the Falcons, the general manager, where Scott Pioli was. Everybody welcomed me with open arms, but they all assumed that Coach Saban was going to pave the way for me, and which he was. But Coach, even though you work for him and you got a relationship with him, you got to go get a job somewhere else before he hired you. So it was just to me, it was a bunch of miscommunication in terms of who's going to help. You know what I mean? Because you need help. You don't care how much you know, you need help. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And I just ultimately got tired of playing that game. I wanted out of the rat race, and I feel great being out of the rat race. I'm a lot healthier, a lot better person. You know what I mean? So I interviewed 6 times my 4 years there, 2 times each off season. The Lane Kiffin situation I explained to you. I interviewed with App State twice. I know it may sound bad because you think this guy interviewed twice for a job and couldn't get it. I still talk to the head coach, Sean Clark at App State to this day. The last time I interviewed with him, I think it was last January, like March or something like that. He wanted to hire me, he said, but we needed so much help because they lost so many guys on the defensive staff that they hired another cornerbacks coach who had a co-coordinator title at his old spot, at his old school. I was just an analyst. You know what I mean? I couldn't, the timing was off. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that was the story of my life in terms of trying to become a coach.
Yeah.
Some of the other interviews were through Zoom, and I felt like I did good, but they don't know who you are through a Zoom call. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I still have full confidence in myself. None of that bothers me, not one bit.
Yeah.
So,
what would it take for you to, like, would you consider, now that you're out of it and you're happier mentally and physically and all that stuff, would you still consider coaching somewhere in college or pro, obviously, if the opportunity came up?
maybe pro, not college. It's ridiculous, man. Just with the time that you spend away from your kids, and me having to, and this is a crucial point of their lives. I have a 9-year-old and I have a 3-year-old.
Okay.
I missed a lot of my 9-year-olds growing, when we were in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
And our relationship was a little strained. I'm like, nah, I'm good on all of this, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when you're doing last couple things here, when you do your training and stuff like that, are you just working defensive stuff, or are you doing offense too? Or are you just doing fundamentals of the game as, like, in general?
I do it all. I work
Okay.
with receivers, running backs, and I teach the game, opposed to, like, again, just doing drills. I teach how you need to consistently play, like at what level you need to play at. And when I say what level, like just being low and the reasons why. I just, I don't talk about it. I do talk about it when I teach, but then I go out and prove it. You know,
show them,
like, yeah, this is why you got to do it. Like this. So
gotcha.
A lot of movement stuff as well.
And do you have, like, high school kids that are getting ready to go to college as well?
Yes, I have a lot of them, in fact.
Yeah.
In a lot of offers from a lot of places. A couple of them got Bama offers, Georgia offers. So that has nothing to do with me. Ultimately, I want it to have something to do with me, but me helping them get that opportunity through my relationships with Coach Saban, Coach Smart. But I haven't even been down here a year, and I just lucked up and found some clients who are just freak athletes.
Nice. Well, hey, if you can put your stamp on it, man, that's good. Looks good for you too. So
yeah, no doubt.
That's a good thing. So, I mean, if people want to follow you or see what you're up to, where can they find you on social media and stuff?
Javier Arenas 28 on Instagram, and Javier Arenas 21 on Twitter.
Gotcha.
So those are the two handles that I use, and two websites that I use.
Cool, man. Well, hey, congrats on your new business, and I wish you the best of luck. And I appreciate you being on with us today.
Thanks a lot, Brett, for having me, man.
You got it. My thanks to Javier Arenas. Hope you guys enjoyed that interview as much as I did, especially you SEC college football fans. So a lot of good nuggets there. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. Check me out on YouTube. Same thing, Too Tall Sports Podcast. I'm also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can do 5-star ratings on both of those now, not just Apple, but also Spotify if you get a chance to do so. So please do that. I really appreciate it. And hope everyone has a great day. I'll see you for another great episode next week.